A Life Without Anger. Introduction. Anger is one of the most common emotions in human life, yet it is also one of the most misunderstood. Many people believe that anger is a sign of strength, that raising your voice means you are defending yourself, or that holding anger inside gives you power. From a young age, we are taught, directly or indirectly, that anger is normal, unavoidable, and sometimes even necessary. We see it in families, at school, at work, on the streets, and constantly on social media. People argue, insult each other, and react without thinking, and this behavior slowly becomes accepted as part of everyday life. But very few people stop to ask an important question. What is anger really giving us? Does it truly protect us, or does it quietly steal our peace, our clarity, and our happiness? This book begins with a simple but powerful idea. A life without anger is possible. Not a life without problems, not a life without challenges, but a life where anger no longer controls your thoughts, your words, and your actions. Anger often feels automatic, like something that happens to us without permission. A rude comment, a mistake, a delay, a disappointment. Suddenly, the heart beats faster, the mind becomes cloudy, and the body prepares for conflict. In these moments, we feel justified. We feel certain that our anger is reasonable. Yet, when the moment passes, what remains is rarely satisfaction. More often, we are left with regret, broken relationships, stress, and a feeling of being tired inside. Anger promises relief, but it almost never delivers it. Living without anger does not mean becoming weak, silent, or passive. It does not mean allowing others to disrespect you or ignoring injustice. On the contrary, a calm mind sees more clearly, speaks more wisely, and acts more effectively. Anger narrows our vision. It reduces complex situations to simple enemies and quick reactions. Calmness, however, opens space for understanding, choice, and self-respect. When you are calm, you are not controlled by the behavior of others. You respond instead of reacting. You decide instead of exploding. This is not a loss of power. It is the highest form of control. Many people fear the idea of letting go of anger because they believe it is part of who they are. That's just my personality, they say. I get angry easily. But anger is not an identity. It is a habit, and like all habits, it is learned, and it can be unlearned. Often, anger begins as a defense mechanism. At some point in life, being angry may have helped you feel safe, heard, or respected. Over time, the mind repeats what once worked, even when it no longer serves you. The result is a pattern of anger that feels familiar, even comfortable, despite the damage it causes. This book is an invitation to gently question that pattern and to imagine a different way of living. A life without anger is not built overnight. It is built through awareness, patience, and daily practice. The first step is noticing anger without judging yourself. Most people become angry and then become angry at themselves for being angry. This creates a cycle of tension and self-criticism. Instead, learning to observe anger as it arises, like watching a wave form and pass, changes your relationship with it. You begin to see that anger is a temporary state, not a command you must obey. When you pause, even for a few seconds, you create space between the feeling and the action. In that space, freedom begins. This book is written for anyone who is tired of losing peace to moments that do not deserve it. It is for the person who feels drained after arguments, who replays conversations in their head, who wishes they had spoken differently or stayed silent. It is also for those who grew up in environments where anger was normal and now want to break that cycle, for themselves and for the people they love. You do not need to be perfect to live without anger. You only need the willingness to look inward with honesty and kindness. Throughout this book, we will explore where anger comes from, how it affects the body and the mind, and why it feels so powerful in the moment but so empty afterward. We will look at common triggers, expectations, ego, fear, and unresolved pain, and how they quietly fuel angry reactions. More importantly, we will focus on practical ways to respond differently. This is not about suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. Suppressed anger does not disappear, it hides and returns stronger. Instead, we will learn how to understand emotions, express boundaries calmly, and release tension before it turns into rage. A life without anger is deeply connected to self-respect. When you respect yourself, you do not allow temporary emotions to damage your long-term well-being. You value your peace more than being right. You understand that not every battle deserves your energy. Calmness becomes a filter through which you choose what truly matters. Over time, this way of living changes how people experience you. Your words carry more weight. Your presence feels safer. Your decisions become clearer. Most importantly, you begin to feel at home within yourself. This book does not promise a life without emotion. You will still feel frustration, sadness, disappointment, and pain. These emotions are part of being human. The difference is that you will no longer add anger on top of them. You will learn to sit with discomfort without turning it into destruction. This skill alone can transform relationships, careers, and inner life. When anger is removed, problems become challenges instead of threats. Conversations become opportunities instead of wars. If you are reading this book, it means a part of you already knows that anger is costing you something. It may be costing you peace, health, relationships, or time. This introduction is not asking you to change everything at once. It is simply asking you to consider a new possibility, that calmness is not weakness, that patience is not silence, and that a life without anger is not a dream, but a practice. Page by page, step by step, you will discover that the calm life you are searching for is not found by controlling the world, but by understanding yourself. This book does not promise a life without emotion. You will still feel frustration, sadness, disappointment, and pain. These emotions are part of being human. The difference is that you will no longer add anger on top of them. You will learn to sit with discomfort without turning it into destruction. This skill alone can transform relationships, careers, and inner life. When anger is removed, problems become challenges instead of threats. Conversations become opportunities instead of wars. If you are reading this book, it means a part of you already knows that anger is costing you something. It may be costing you peace, health, relationships, or time. This introduction is not asking you to change everything at once. It is simply asking you to consider a new possibility, that calmness is not weakness, that patience is not silence, and that a life without anger is not a dream, but a practice. Page by page, step by step, you will discover that the calm life you are searching for is not found by controlling the world, but by understanding yourself. Another reason anger is so common is that it often feels easier than other emotions. Beneath anger, there is usually something more vulnerable: sadness, fear, shame, disappointment, or insecurity. These emotions require honesty and courage to face. Anger, on the other hand, feels protective. It builds a wall. Instead of admitting, "I am hurt," we say, "I am angry." Instead of saying, "I feel afraid of losing control," we say, "This makes me furious." Anger becomes a mask we wear to avoid feeling weak. Unfortunately, this mask also blocks growth, connection, and healing. Many people carry anger from the past without realizing it. Unresolved experiences, childhood neglect, unfair treatment, betrayal, or repeated disappointment do not disappear with time. They stay stored in the mind and body. Later in life, small events can activate old pain, and the reaction feels bigger than the situation deserves. This is why people sometimes explode over minor issues. The present moment becomes connected to the past. Understanding this is crucial because it shows that anger is often not about what is happening now, but about what has never been processed before. Society also plays a major role in normalizing anger. We live in a world that rewards outrage. On social media, angry opinions get more attention than calm ones. In daily life, people who speak aggressively are often seen as confident or strong, while calm individuals are misunderstood as weak or indifferent. This creates pressure to express anger as a way to be heard. Over time, anger becomes a communication style rather than an emotional response. People stop asking, "What am I really feeling?" and start using anger as their default language. To move toward a life without anger, we must challenge the idea that anger is necessary for change. History, relationships, and personal growth all show that lasting change comes from clarity, not rage. Anger may create movement, but it rarely creates understanding. It pushes people apart instead of bringing them closer. Even when anger achieves a short-term result, it often damages trust and respect in the process. Calm communication, on the other hand, allows boundaries to be expressed without destruction. It allows strength to appear without fear. One of the most important realizations on this journey is that anger does not come from outside. People do not make us angry. Situations do not cause anger on their own. Anger is created inside us based on how we interpret events. Two people can face the same situation and one becomes furious while the other remains calm. The difference is not the situation, but the mindset. This does not mean blaming yourself for feeling anger. It means recognizing your role in it. Responsibility is not guilt, it is freedom. When you see that anger arises from within, you gain the ability to respond differently. Awareness is the foundation of change. Before anger turns into words or actions, there is always a moment, sometimes very brief, where it first appears in the body. A tight chest, a hot face, a clenched jaw, shallow breathing. Most people ignore these signals and jump straight into reaction. Learning to notice these early signs is like catching a fire when it is still a spark. You do not need to eliminate anger instantly, you only need to slow down enough to see it clearly. In that moment of awareness, you reclaim choice. It is also important to understand that wanting a life without anger does not mean rejecting yourself. Anger developed for a reason. At some point, it tried to protect you. This book does not ask you to fight anger or hate it. Fighting anger often creates more anger. Instead, the goal is understanding and compassion. When you understand why anger appears, it loses its grip. When you respond to it with awareness instead of judgment, it begins to soften. Many people worry that without anger, they will lose motivation or passion. This fear comes from confusing anger with energy. Anger is intense, but it is not sustainable. It burns quickly and leaves exhaustion behind. Calm determination, however, is steady and powerful. It allows you to act consistently without harming yourself or others. A life without anger is not a life without drive. It is a life driven by purpose instead of reaction. As you move through this chapter, reflect honestly on your own relationship with anger. When does it appear most often? What situations trigger it? What does it protect you from feeling? There is no need to judge your answers. Awareness alone is a powerful step. Anger thrives in unconsciousness. It weakens in the light of understanding. This chapter is not meant to give you all the answers. It is meant to open a door to self-observation, responsibility, and choice. Anger has controlled human lives for centuries, not because it is strong, but because it is misunderstood. When you begin to understand anger, you begin to loosen its hold. And when anger no longer controls you, space opens for calm, clarity, and a deeper sense of peace. This is where a life without anger truly begins. Chapter 2. The Roots of Anger, Where It Really Comes From. Anger rarely begins in the moment it appears. What we experience as sudden irritation or explosive rage is often the surface expression of something much deeper and much older. To truly move toward a life without anger, it is not enough to manage reactions. We must understand their origins. Anger grows quietly in the mind long before it shows itself in words or actions. It is shaped by past experiences, beliefs, expectations, and emotional wounds that were never fully seen or healed. When these inner roots are ignored, anger continues to return, wearing different faces but carrying the same message. One of the strongest roots of anger is unmet expectation. From early childhood, we create ideas about how life should be, how people should treat us, and how situations should unfold. These expectations are often unconscious. We expect respect, appreciation, fairness, loyalty, and understanding. When reality fails to meet these expectations, frustration appears. When frustration is not understood or expressed calmly, it turns into anger. The stronger and more rigid the expectation, the stronger the anger when it is broken. In this way, anger is often not about what happened, but about the gap between reality and our inner demands. Another deep source of anger is fear. Fear of losing control, fear of being disrespected, fear of being ignored, or fear of being hurt again. Anger often feels like the opposite of fear, but in truth, it is built on it. When the mind senses a threat, emotional or psychological, it reacts by becoming defensive. Anger creates the illusion of strength and protection. It pushes others away before they can come closer. For many people, anger is safer than vulnerability. It is easier to shout than to admit fear. Yet this safety is false. While anger may protect the ego, it prevents genuine connection and keeps the fear alive underneath. Past emotional pain is another powerful root of anger. Experiences of injustice, rejection, betrayal, or neglect leave marks that do not fade easily. When these experiences are not processed, they remain stored in memory and emotion. Later in life, similar situations can activate this stored pain, even if the current situation is minor. A simple comment may feel like a deep insult. A small mistake may feel like a personal attack. The intensity of the anger does not match the present moment because it is fueled by the past. Without awareness, we keep reacting to old wounds as if they are happening now. The way we were taught to handle emotions also plays a major role. In many families and cultures, emotions are not discussed openly. Some people were taught that showing sadness is weakness, that fear should be hidden, and that vulnerability is dangerous. Anger, however, is often allowed or even encouraged, especially in men. As a result, anger becomes the only acceptable emotion. Instead of saying, "I feel hurt," people say, "I am angry." Over time, the emotional language becomes limited, and anger takes over as the main form of expression. This does not mean people are naturally angry. It means they were never taught another way. Ego and identity are also closely connected to anger. The ego is the part of us that wants to feel important, right, and in control. When our self-image is threatened, anger often appears. Someone criticizes us, someone disagrees with us, someone does not recognize our effort. The ego reacts by becoming defensive. It wants to protect its image. In these moments, anger is not about truth or justice. It is about preserving a sense of self. The stronger the ego attachment, the more easily anger arises. A calm person is not someone with no ego, but someone who does not let the ego lead every reaction. Another root of anger is internal pressure. Many people live with constant stress, high expectations of themselves, and little rest. They push themselves to be productive, successful, and strong at all times. This creates tension in the body and mind. When tension builds without release, anger becomes more likely. Small inconveniences feel unbearable. Minor mistakes feel intolerable. In these cases, anger is not directed at the situation, but at exhaustion itself. A tired mind has little patience. A stressed body reacts quickly. Understanding this helps shift the focus from blame to care. Unexpressed needs also feed anger. When we need rest, understanding, support, or appreciation and do not receive it, resentment grows. If these needs are never spoken or even acknowledged internally, anger becomes the voice that expresses them indirectly. Instead of clearly stating a need, anger complains, attacks, or withdraws. This creates confusion in relationships. Others hear anger, but not the need behind it. As a result, the need remains unmet, and the cycle continues. Learning to recognize and express needs calmly is one of the most powerful steps toward reducing anger. It is important to understand that anger is not random. It follows patterns. The same types of situations trigger it again and again. The same feelings appear beneath it. Observing these patterns without judgment is a key part of this journey. When you see anger as a message instead of an enemy, you begin to listen differently. You ask, what is this anger trying to protect? Or what pain is asking for attention? These questions shift the focus from reaction to understanding. Many people try to control anger by suppressing it. They tell themselves to calm down, to stay quiet, to ignore it. While this may work temporarily, suppressed anger does not disappear. It goes inward. It turns into bitterness, passive aggression, or emotional distance. Over time, it can lead to anxiety or depression. A life without anger is not a life of suppression, it is a life of awareness and healthy expression. Understanding the roots of anger allows it to be released naturally, without force. As this chapter shows, anger is not a flaw in character, it is a signal pointing towards something unresolved. When you trace anger back to its roots, you begin to see yourself with more compassion. You realize that your reactions were not random or meaningless. They were attempts to cope, to protect, to survive emotionally. This understanding does not excuse harmful behavior, but it creates the foundation for change. By identifying the true sources of anger, expectations, fear, past pain, ego, stress, and unmet needs, you take away its mystery and power. Anger thrives when it is misunderstood. It weakens when it is seen clearly. This clarity prepares you for the next step in this journey, learning how to respond to anger differently, not by fighting it, but by transforming the conditions that give rise to it. A life without anger does not begin with control. It begins with understanding.
Chapter 3: How Anger Shapes the Mind and Body. Anger is not only an emotional experience, it is a full-body event. When anger appears, it immediately affects the way we think, feel, and behave. Many people believe anger exists only in the mind, but the body is often the first to react. A sudden rush of heat, a tightening in the chest, clenched fists, shallow breathing, or a tense jaw are common signals. These reactions happen automatically before conscious thought. The body prepares for conflict even when the situation does not require it. Over time, this repeated reaction changes both mental patterns and physical health in ways that are often invisible but deeply damaging. When anger takes control of the mind, clarity disappears. Thoughts become narrow and extreme. The mind focuses on blame, injustice, and perceived threats. In this state, it becomes difficult to listen, to understand another perspective, or to think creatively. Anger convinces us that we are right and others are wrong. It simplifies complex situations into enemies and victims. This mental narrowing may feel satisfying in the moment, but it blocks wisdom. Decisions made in anger are rarely balanced. Words spoken in anger often create consequences that last far longer than the emotion itself. Anger also affects memory and attention. When the mind is angry, it selectively remembers events that support the feeling. Past insults, failures, and disappointments are pulled forward, strengthening the emotion. At the same time, positive memories and alternative explanations are ignored. This creates a distorted view of reality. Over time, frequent anger trains the brain to expect conflict. The mind becomes alert, suspicious, and reactive. Even neutral situations begin to feel threatening. This constant state of alertness drains mental energy and reduces the ability to experience peace or joy. The body experiences anger as stress. When anger arises, stress hormones are released, increasing heart rate and blood pressure while reducing digestion and immune function.
This response is meant to be temporary, but in modern life, anger is often triggered many times a day. Traffic, work pressure, family conflict, and digital overload keep the stress response active. The body does not get enough time to return to balance. This leads to chronic tension, fatigue, headaches, muscle pain, and sleep problems. Over time, prolonged anger contributes to serious health issues, including heart disease and weakened immunity. Anger also disrupts breathing. During angry moments, breathing becomes fast and shallow. This reduces oxygen flow to the brain and reinforces the stress response. Shallow breathing sends a signal to the body that danger is present, even when it is not. This creates a feedback loop. Anger changes breathing, and the breathing keeps anger alive. Many people are unaware of this connection. They try to control anger through willpower without addressing the physical patterns that sustain it. Understanding the body's role is essential for lasting change. Another way anger shapes the body is through muscle tension. The body prepares for action by tightening muscles, especially in the shoulders, neck, jaw, and back. When anger is frequent or suppressed, this tension becomes chronic. People carry it for years without realizing it. Chronic muscle tension reduces flexibility, causes pain, and limits relaxation. It also affects posture and movement, subtly reinforcing a defensive state. A tense body supports an angry mind. A relaxed body supports a calm mind. The two are always connected. Anger also influences how we relate to others. When anger becomes a regular response, relationships begin to suffer. People may become cautious, defensive, or distant. Trust weakens. Communication becomes difficult. Even when anger is not expressed openly, it is often felt. Tone of voice, facial expressions, and body language communicate more than words. Over time, anger creates emotional distance. It builds walls instead of bridges. This isolation often increases inner frustration, creating even more anger. The cycle continues unless it is consciously interrupted. On a deeper level, anger shapes identity. People who experience frequent anger may begin to see themselves as angry people or as someone who is easily triggered. This identity reinforces the behavior. When anger becomes part of how you see yourself, it feels inevitable. Change seems difficult or impossible. But identity is not fixed. It is shaped by repeated experiences and beliefs. As awareness grows and reactions change, identity can change as well. A person who once believed they were naturally angry can discover a calmer, more balanced self underneath. Anger also affects how we treat ourselves. Many people turn anger inward. They criticize themselves harshly, replay mistakes, and hold themselves to impossible standards. This internal anger is often quieter but just as damaging. It creates constant pressure and dissatisfaction. The mind becomes a hostile place. Living in this way reduces self-compassion and increases stress. A life without anger includes releasing not only anger toward others, but also anger toward oneself. Understanding how anger shapes the mind and body is not meant to create fear, it is meant to create motivation. When you see the true cost of anger, not only in broken moments but in long-term well-being, you begin to value calmness differently. Calm is no longer just a pleasant state, it becomes a necessity for health and clarity. This understanding shifts the goal from controlling anger to caring for the mind and body. The good news is that the same system that learns anger can also learn calm. The brain is adaptable. The body responds to new patterns. When breathing slows, muscles relax, and awareness increases, the stress response weakens. With practice, the mind begins to pause before reacting. The body learns that it is safe. Over time, calm becomes familiar, and anger loses its automatic power. This chapter invites you to observe your own experience. Notice how anger feels in your body. Notice how it affects your thoughts and decisions. This observation is not passive, it is transformative. When you see clearly, you create choice. And when choice appears, anger is no longer the ruler of your inner world. A life without anger is not achieved by force, but by understanding the deep connection between mind and body, and learning to care for both with awareness and respect. Chapter 4. Awareness and Choice. The moment anger loses its power. Anger feels powerful because it moves fast. It rises suddenly, fills the mind, and pushes the body into action before there is time to think. Most people believe anger controls them because they experience it after it has already taken over. They notice the raised voice, the harsh words, or the tense silence, and by then the damage is often done. But anger does not begin with action. It begins with a moment, sometimes very small, where awareness can change everything. This chapter is about that moment, the space where choice becomes possible and anger begins to lose its power. Every emotional reaction follows a sequence. First, there is a trigger, a word, an event, a thought, or a memory. Then comes a sensation in the body, tension, heat, tightness, or pressure. After that, the mind creates a story. This is unfair. I am being disrespected. This should not happen. Finally, behavior follows. Anger feels uncontrollable because most people only notice it at the final stage. Awareness means learning to recognize the earlier stages where intervention is still gentle and effective. When you see anger forming, instead of exploding, you begin to reclaim control. The most important skill in living without anger is the ability to pause. The pause does not need to be long. Even a few seconds can change the outcome. In that pause, you shift from reaction to response. Reaction is automatic and unconscious. Response is intentional and conscious. The pause allows the nervous system to settle slightly, enough for the mind to regain clarity. Without the pause, anger decides for you. With the pause, you decide for yourself. Awareness begins in the body. Before angry thoughts become loud, the body usually signals discomfort. A tightening in the chest, a clenched jaw, shallow breathing, or a rush of heat are early signs. Learning to notice these signals is like learning a new language. At first, they are easy to miss. With practice, they become clear. When you recognize these sensations without judging them, you interrupt the automatic cycle. You are no longer lost inside the emotion. You are observing it. This shift from being the emotion to observing the emotion is a powerful form of freedom. Thoughts play a central role in keeping anger alive. The mind tells stories to justify the emotion. These stories often include blame, assumptions, and absolute statements. They always do this. They don't respect me. I shouldn't accept this. Awareness means questioning these thoughts, not to deny your feelings, but to see reality more clearly. Many angry thoughts are interpretations, not facts. When you recognize this, the emotional charge begins to soften. The mind becomes more flexible, and anger loses intensity. Choice appears when awareness is present. You may still feel anger, but you are no longer forced to act on it. You can choose silence instead of shouting. You can choose to walk away instead of continuing the conflict. You can choose to speak calmly instead of attacking. These choices do not suppress anger, they transform it. Each time you choose differently, you weaken the old habit and strengthen a new one. Over time, the gap between trigger and reaction grows larger, and anger becomes less automatic. It is important to understand that awareness is not perfection. You will still miss moments. You will still react sometimes. This does not mean you are failing. Awareness grows gradually. Each moment of noticing, even after the reaction, is valuable. Reflecting on what happened without self-judgment builds understanding. Self-criticism only adds another layer of anger. Compassion, on the other hand, creates learning. A calm life is built through patience, not punishment. Another powerful aspect of awareness is recognizing choice and interpretation. The same event can be seen in different ways. A delay can be seen as disrespect or as a neutral inconvenience. A criticism can be seen as an attack or as feedback. Awareness allows you to explore alternative interpretations instead of immediately choosing the most threatening one. This does not mean ignoring real problems, it means responding to them with clarity instead of emotional force. Awareness also helps separate identity from emotion. Instead of saying, I am angry, you begin to say, I feel anger. This small change in language reflects a deeper shift. You are no longer defining yourself by the emotion. Anger becomes an experience, not who you are. This separation reduces its power. When you are not the anger, you can work with it instead of being controlled by it. The practice of awareness extends beyond moments of conflict. Daily habits such as mindful breathing, quiet reflection, and intentional slowing down strengthen this skill. When the mind is constantly rushed, awareness is weak. When the mind learns to be present, awareness becomes natural. A calm daily rhythm makes calm responses more available during difficult moments. Living without anger is not only about what you do when anger appears, but about how you live when it does not. This chapter invites you to shift your relationship with anger from opposition to understanding. Anger does not need to be fought, it needs to be seen. When it is seen clearly without fear or judgment, it begins to change on its own. Awareness creates space. In that space, you discover something powerful. You are not your reactions. You are the one who can choose. A life without anger is built moment by moment, choice by choice. Each pause, each breath, each conscious response weakens the old patterns and strengthens a new way of being. Anger loses its power not because it disappears completely, but because it no longer controls your actions. Awareness turns reaction to choice, and choice is the doorway to lasting calm and inner freedom. Silence can also be a powerful response. Not every situation requires immediate words. When emotions are high, choosing silence allows space for reflection. Silence used intentionally is not avoidance, it is self-regulation. It protects relationships from unnecessary damage. Speaking later when calm returns leads to better outcomes. Responding without anger sometimes means choosing the right time, not just the right words. It is also important to recognize when communication is not productive. Some conversations are driven by ego or the need to dominate. Engaging in these conversations with anger only feeds the cycle. Calmly disengaging is a form of self-respect. You do not need to attend every argument you are invited to. Choosing peace over conflict is a powerful decision. Responding without anger does not mean suppressing truth. It means delivering truth in a way that can be received. Calm honesty is firm without being cruel. It respects both self and others. Over time, people learn to trust calm communicators. Their words carry weight because they are not driven by emotional volatility. Practicing calm communication takes time. Old habits will appear, especially under stress. Progress comes from awareness, not perfection. Each attempt to respond calmly strengthens new patterns. Each moment of reflection builds skill. Over time, responding without anger becomes natural rather than forced. This chapter invites you to redefine strength in communication. Strength is not volume or aggression. Strength is clarity, presence, and respect. When you communicate without anger, you protect your peace and increase your influence. Conflicts become manageable. Relationships become healthier. A life without anger is not silent. It is expressive in a way that builds understanding rather than destruction. Silence can also be a powerful response. Not every situation requires immediate words. When emotions are high, choosing silence allows space for reflection. Silence used intentionally is not avoidance, it is self-regulation. It protects relationships from unnecessary damage. Speaking later when calm returns leads to better outcomes. Responding without anger sometimes means choosing the right time, not just the right words. It is also important to recognize when communication is not productive. Some conversations are driven by ego or the need to dominate. Engaging in these conversations with anger only feeds the cycle. Calmly disengaging is a form of self-respect. You do not need to attend every argument you are invited to. Choosing peace over conflict is a powerful decision. Responding without anger does not mean suppressing truth. It means delivering truth in a way that can be received. Calm honesty is firm without being cruel. It respects both self and others. Over time, people learn to trust calm communicators. Their words carry weight because they are not driven by emotional volatility. Practicing calm communication takes time. Old habits will appear, especially under stress. Progress comes from awareness, not perfection. Each attempt to respond calmly strengthens new patterns. Each moment of reflection builds skill. Over time, responding without anger becomes natural rather than forced. This chapter invites you to redefine strength in communication. Strength is not volume or aggression. Strength is clarity, presence, and respect. When you communicate without anger, you protect your peace and increase your influence. Conflicts become manageable. Relationships become healthier. A life without anger is not silent. It is expressive in a way that builds understanding rather than destruction. Silence can also be a powerful response. Not every situation requires immediate words. When emotions are high, choosing silence allows space for reflection. Silence used intentionally is not avoidance, it is self-regulation. It protects relationships from unnecessary damage. Speaking later when calm returns leads to better outcomes. Responding without anger sometimes means choosing the right time, not just the right words. It is also important to recognize when communication is not productive. Some conversations are driven by ego or the need to dominate. Engaging in these conversations with anger only feeds the cycle. Calmly disengaging is a form of self-respect. You do not need to attend every argument you are invited to. Choosing peace over conflict is a powerful decision. Responding without anger does not mean suppressing truth. It means delivering truth in a way that can be received. Calm honesty is firm without being cruel. It respects both self and others. Over time, people learn to trust calm communicators. Their words carry weight because they are not driven by emotional volatility. Practicing calm communication takes time. Old habits will appear, especially under stress. Progress comes from awareness, not perfection. Each attempt to respond calmly strengthens new patterns. Each moment of reflection builds skill. Over time, responding without anger becomes natural rather than forced. This chapter invites you to redefine strength in communication. Strength is not volume or aggression. Strength is clarity, presence, and respect. When you communicate without anger, you protect your peace and increase your influence. Conflicts become manageable. Relationships become healthier. A life without anger is not silent. It is expressive in a way that builds understanding rather than destruction. Another important aspect of healing is allowing yourself to feel what was once suppressed. Many people were not allowed to express emotions safely when they were younger. They learned to hide sadness, fear, or anger in order to survive emotionally. As adults, these emotions remain unexpressed, waiting for release. Creating safe space to feel through reflection, writing, or quiet awareness allows these emotions to move and dissolve. When emotions are felt fully, they no longer need to appear as anger. Letting go of past anger also involves updating the mind. The mind often continues to react as if old threats are still present. It protects an identity formed during painful times. Healing means recognizing that you are no longer the person you were then. You have new resources, awareness, and choices. When the mind understands that the present is different, it relaxes. Anger softens because protection is no longer needed in the same way. It is important to approach healing with patience. The past did not create its patterns in a day, and it will not release them instantly. Healing is not linear. Some days feel light, others heavy. Progress is not measured by the absence of anger, but by the speed with which you return to calm. Each time you respond to an old trigger with awareness instead of reaction, you weaken its power. Healing does not require digging into every memory. It requires honesty and presence. When anger arises, instead of asking who is wrong, ask what is being touched inside me. This question shifts attention inward, where healing begins. Over time, patterns become clearer. The same themes appear. These themes point toward unresolved experiences asking for understanding. A life without anger is not built by erasing the past, but by integrating it. When the past is understood and released, it stops repeating itself in the present. Anger no longer needs to protect old wounds. The mind becomes more spacious. The body relaxes. You respond to life as it is now, not as it once was. This chapter invites you to treat your past with respect, not fear. The anger you carry is not a flaw. It is evidence of experiences that mattered. When you meet these experiences with awareness and compassion, they lose their charge. Healing becomes possible. And as healing deepens, anger fades, not because it is forced away, but because it is no longer needed. Chapter 7. Responding without anger, New Ways of Communication. One of the greatest fears people have about letting go of anger is the fear of losing their voice. Many believe that without anger, they will not be heard, respected, or taken seriously. Anger has often been used as a tool to demand attention or assert boundaries. However, while anger may be loud, it is rarely effective in the long term. This chapter explores how to communicate clearly, firmly, and honestly without anger, and why calm communication is far more powerful. Communication driven by anger usually aims to win, not to understand. Words become weapons, tone becomes sharp. The focus shifts from solving the problem to proving a point. Even when the message is valid, anger distorts it. People stop listening and start defending themselves. The original issue is lost in emotional noise. Responding without anger changes the entire dynamic. When calmness leads, communication becomes clearer, and the possibility of resolution increases. Responding without anger begins with intention. Before speaking, it helps to pause and ask a simple question. What is my goal right now? Is it to express a need, set a boundary, or solve a problem? When the goal is clear, words become more precise. Anger often speaks in generalizations and accusations. Calm communication speaks in specifics and observations. Instead of blaming, it describes. Instead of attacking, it explains. Listening is a critical part of calm communication. When anger is present, listening becomes difficult. The mind prepares responses while the other person is speaking. True listening requires presence and patience. It does not mean agreeing with everything, but it does mean allowing the other person to feel heard. When people feel heard, their defensiveness decreases. This creates space for mutual understanding. Calm listening often diffuses tension more effectively than any argument. Setting boundaries without anger is both possible and necessary. Boundaries protect well-being. Without them, resentment grows. Many people avoid setting boundaries until anger forces them to react. Learning to set boundaries early and calmly prevents anger from building up. Clear boundaries are stated simply and respectfully. They do not require justification or emotional intensity. Calm boundaries are easier to maintain because they are not fueled by emotion. Another important skill is expressing needs directly. Anger often appears when needs are ignored or unspoken. Instead of clearly saying what is needed, people expect others to understand. When expectations are not met, anger follows. Direct communication reduces misunderstanding. Saying, "I need time to think," or "I need support with this," is more effective than expressing frustration indirectly. Clarity prevents conflict. Silence can also be a powerful response. Not every situation requires immediate words. When emotions are high, choosing silence allows space for reflection. Silence used intentionally is not avoidance, it is self-regulation. It protects relationships from unnecessary damage. Speaking later when calm returns leads to better outcomes. Responding without anger sometimes means choosing the right time, not just the right words. It is also important to recognize when communication is not productive. Some conversations are driven by ego or the need to dominate. Engaging in these conversations with anger only feeds the cycle. Calmly disengaging is a form of self-respect. You do not need to attend every argument you are invited to. Choosing peace over conflict is a powerful decision. Responding without anger does not mean suppressing truth. It means delivering truth in a way that can be received. Calm honesty is firm without being cruel. It respects both self and others. Over time, people learn to trust calm communicators. Their words carry weight because they are not driven by emotional volatility. Practicing calm communication takes time. Old habits will appear, especially under stress. Progress comes from awareness, not perfection. Each attempt to respond calmly strengthens new patterns. Each moment of reflection builds skill. Over time, responding without anger becomes natural rather than forced. This chapter invites you to redefine strength in communication. Strength is not volume or aggression. Strength is clarity, presence, and respect. When you communicate without anger, you protect your peace and increase your influence. Conflicts become manageable. Relationships become healthier. A life without anger is not silent. It is expressive in a way that builds understanding rather than destruction. Chapter 8. Building Daily Habits for a Calm Life. A life without anger is not created in dramatic moments alone. It is built quietly through daily habits. What you do each day shapes how you respond under pressure. When the mind and body are constantly rushed, overstimulated, and exhausted, anger finds easy access. When daily life is grounded in awareness, balance, and care, calmness becomes the natural response. This chapter focuses on the small, consistent practices that slowly transform anger into stability and peace. Daily habits create emotional patterns. The way you wake up, the pace of your mornings, how you speak to yourself, how often you rest, and how you handle stress all influence your emotional state. Many people live in constant mental noise. They wake up already thinking about problems, scroll through information that triggers comparison or outrage, and move from task to task without pause. In this state, the nervous system never truly relaxes. Anger then becomes not a reaction to a single event, but a symptom of overload. One of the most powerful habits for reducing anger is slowing down. Slowing down does not mean doing less, it means doing things with presence. When actions are rushed, the mind stays ahead of the body. This creates tension and impatience. Slowing down breathing, movements, and speech sends a signal of safety to the body. Over time, this reduces the baseline level of stress. A calm baseline makes angry reactions less likely, even in difficult situations. Breathing is a simple but often overlooked daily practice. Shallow breathing keeps the body in a state of alert. Deep, steady breathing activates the body's natural calming system. Taking a few minutes each day to breathe slowly and consciously trains the nervous system to return to balance more easily. This habit becomes especially valuable during moments of irritation. The body recognizes the pattern and responds with calm instead of tension. Another essential habit is mindful awareness of thoughts. Thoughts often run automatically, repeating worries, judgments, and complaints. These thought patterns quietly fuel anger. Observing thoughts without immediately believing them weakens their influence. This does not require stopping thoughts, only noticing them. When you see a thought as a mental event rather than a fact, its emotional charge decreases. Over time, the mind becomes less reactive and more spacious. Rest is also central to emotional regulation. A tired mind reacts faster and with less patience. Many people underestimate the role of rest in managing anger. Quality sleep, short pauses during the day, and moments of silence allow the nervous system to reset. Rest is not laziness, it is maintenance. Without it, even small challenges feel overwhelming. With it, the same challenges become manageable. Physical movement plays a role as well. Stored tension in the body contributes to emotional reactivity. Gentle movement helps release this tension. Walking, stretching, or simple exercises reconnect the body and mind. Movement does not need to be intense to be effective. Consistency matters more than intensity. A body that moves regularly holds less anger. Daily reflection is another habit that supports calm. Taking time to reflect on emotional reactions helps build awareness. This can be done through quiet thinking or writing. Reflection is not about judging yourself, it is about learning. When you reflect calmly, you begin to see patterns. You notice what triggers irritation, what helps you calm down, and where expectations arise. This understanding reduces repetition of the same reactions. The way you consume information also affects anger. Constant exposure to conflict-driven media keeps the mind in a state of tension. Choosing what you allow into your awareness is an act of self-respect. Limiting exposure to content that fuels outrage creates mental space. Filling that space with learning, creativity, or silence supports emotional balance. Relationships benefit from daily habits of calm presence. Simple acts like listening without interrupting, expressing appreciation, and speaking honestly prevent resentment from building. Anger often grows in silence when issues are ignored. Addressing small concerns calmly prevents larger conflicts later. Healthy communication is not a single conversation, it is a daily practice. Perhaps the most important daily habit is kindness towards yourself. Change requires patience. When anger appears, responding with self-criticism only deepens the struggle. Self-kindness creates safety, and safety allows growth. Each time you choose understanding over judgment, you strengthen calm. A calm life grows best in an environment of compassion. This chapter invites you to see calm not as a personality trait, but as a skill developed through practice. Each small habit contributes to a larger transformation. You do not need to change everything at once. One habit, practiced consistently, begins to shift the inner climate. Over time, calm becomes familiar. anger loses its urgency. A life without anger is not achieved by willpower alone. It is supported by daily choices that care for the mind and body. When these choices become routine, calmness stops being something you try to achieve and becomes something you naturally live. Chapter 9. Choosing Peace in a Chaotic World. Living without anger does not mean living in a quiet or perfect world. The world is often noisy, unfair, fast, and unpredictable. People disagree, mistakes happen, plans fail, and challenges appear without warning. In such an environment, choosing peace can feel unrealistic or even irresponsible. Yet, this is precisely why the choice matters. Peace is not the absence of chaos, it is the ability to remain steady within it. This chapter explores how to protect inner calm while living fully in a world that constantly invites reaction. Modern life places enormous pressure on the human nervous system. Information arrives endlessly, opinions compete loudly, conflict is amplified and rewarded. Many people live in a state of constant stimulation, rarely allowing the mind to rest. In this state, anger becomes almost automatic. Choosing peace requires awareness of this environment and a conscious decision to relate to it differently. You may not be able to change the world's pace, but you can change how deeply it enters you. One of the most important steps in choosing peace is accepting that not everything deserves your emotional energy. Many conflicts feel urgent but are ultimately unimportant. The mind reacts as if every issue is personal and every disagreement is a threat. Learning to step back and ask, "Does this truly matter?" creates space. This question does not deny problems, it prioritizes them. Peace grows when energy is invested wisely rather than impulsively. Another key aspect of choosing peace is redefining success. In a reactive world, success is often associated with dominance, being right, or winning arguments. This definition fuels anger. When success is redefined as clarity, integrity, and emotional balance, reactions soften. You begin to value calm outcomes over dramatic victories. This shift changes how you approach conflict, work, and relationships. Choosing peace also involves accepting human imperfection, both in others and in yourself. People will misunderstand you, they will disappoint you, they will act from their own fears and limitations. Expecting perfection creates constant frustration. Acceptance does not mean tolerating harm, it means recognizing reality without resistance. When acceptance is present, responses become more thoughtful. Boundaries are set without hatred, decisions are made without bitterness. Peace requires courage. Anger often feels easier because it is familiar. Calm responses may feel uncomfortable at first. They may be misunderstood. Some people may even challenge them, expecting reaction. Staying calm in these moments requires inner strength. It is the strength to remain aligned with your values rather than pulled by external pressure. Over time, this strength becomes confidence. Choosing peace also means allowing others to have their emotions without absorbing them. Emotional boundaries are essential. You can care without carrying. You can listen without agreeing. You can support without fixing. When you stop taking responsibility for everyone else's feelings, inner space opens. Anger often arises from emotional overload. Clear boundaries protect peace without isolating you from connection. It is also important to recognize that peace is a choice made repeatedly, not once. There will be days when calm feels natural and days when it feels distant. Progress is not measured by never feeling anger, but by how quickly you return to balance. Each time you choose to pause, reflect, or respond gently, you reinforce a new pattern. Peace grows through repetition. Gratitude plays a subtle but powerful role in this process. When attention is focused only on what is wrong, anger grows. When attention includes what is working, what is meaningful, and what is present, perspective shifts. Gratitude does not ignore problems, it balances perception. A balanced mind is less reactive and more resilient. This chapter invites you to see peace not as withdrawal from life, but as deeper engagement with it. When anger no longer dominates, energy becomes available for creativity, compassion, and purpose. You become more present in conversations, more thoughtful in decisions, and more connected in relationships. Life does not become easier, but it becomes clearer. Choosing peace in a chaotic world is a daily practice of intention. It is choosing how you meet the world, regardless of how the world behaves. This choice does not remove challenges, but it changes your relationship with them. Anger loses its authority. Calm becomes your guide. A life without anger is not about controlling the world. It is about choosing how you live within it. And each day, in small moments and quiet decisions, that choice becomes a way of being. Conclusion: a life without anger. A life without anger is not a destination you arrive at once and for all. It is a way of living that unfolds gradually through awareness, patience, and daily choice. Throughout this book, we have explored anger from many angles, not as an enemy to be destroyed, but as a signal to be understood. We have seen that anger is not the problem itself. The problem is the unconscious way we relate to it. When anger is misunderstood, it controls us. When it is understood, it loses its power. You have learned that anger does not come from the world alone, but from the interaction between events and the mind. Expectations, fear, past pain, and the need for control all shape how anger appears. You have seen how anger affects the body, the mind, and relationships, often silently and over time. Most importantly, you have discovered that there is always a moment of choice, a pause where awareness can change everything. In that pause, freedom begins. Letting go of anger does not mean denying emotion or avoiding truth. It means meeting life with clarity instead of reaction. It means setting boundaries without hostility, communicating without attack, and facing challenges without inner violence. It means understanding that calm is not weakness, but strength in its most stable form. A calm person is not passive, they are present. They act with intention rather than impulse. Healing the past, releasing control, and building daily habits of calm are not quick fixes. They are practices that grow stronger with time. Some days will feel easy, others difficult. Anger may still appear, especially during stress or uncertainty. This does not mean failure. Progress is measured by awareness, not perfection. Each time you notice anger without judging yourself, each time you choose a calmer response, you are reinforcing a new way of being. Living without anger changes how you experience the world. Problems become challenges instead of threats. Disagreements become conversations instead of battles. You begin to conserve energy that was once wasted on inner conflict. That energy becomes available for creativity, compassion, and meaningful action. Relationships deepen, decisions become clearer, inner life becomes quieter and more stable. Perhaps the most important lesson of this journey is that peace is an inner responsibility. The world may remain unpredictable, people may continue to behave imperfectly, and life may not follow your plans. Yet peace does not depend on these conditions. It depends on how you meet them. When you stop asking the world to change so you can be calm and start choosing calm regardless of the world, true freedom appears. This book does not ask you to become someone new. It invites you to return to what is already within you, a natural state of balance that was never lost, only covered by habits of reaction. With awareness, compassion, and practice, that balance becomes accessible again. A life without anger is not a life without emotion. It is a life where emotion no longer rules you. It is a life guided by understanding instead of impulse, by choice instead of habit. And in that life, peace is no longer something you seek. It becomes something you live.